hear me? Yes, it's
Yes,
7.
we can hear you, madam.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Yasu. So this meeting is called to order, and this is the May Clarkston City Council meeting by Zoom. I am Mayor Beverly H. Burks, and at this time we will have roll call. We have an excused absence for Councilman Hassan, and I will proceed with the other councilmen and councilwomen's names. Vice Mayor Yasu,
I'm present.
Councilman Carroll,
Present.
Councilwoman Johnson,
Present.
Councilwoman Hopkins, Councilwoman Hopkins, and Councilman Perkins.
Present.
We do have quorum, so we can proceed with the meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance at this time. So everyone, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now move into administrative business, as well as the present administrative business, which includes the approval of the minutes for the work session on 5/25/21 and the 5/4 council meeting. You have the opportunity to review the minutes. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I have a motion, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
We have reviewed, and I personally don't see any change. I move to approve the minutes for council meetings on June 4th and June 25th, the year 2021.
You mean May meeting? Right.
I'm sorry, I meant May.
Let's do it again. Would you go ahead and restate the motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes for May 4th council meeting and May 25th work session of the year 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we approve the minutes for the council meeting for 5/4/2021 and the work session for 5/25/21. Are you ready for the vote? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passed. Thank you, everyone. We will now proceed with reports, and we will start with Zoning Director, Ms. Cowie, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Good evening, everyone. The Planning and Zoning Board is scheduled to hear 2 applications on June the 15th at 7 p.m. These are 2 variance requests from William Tad Braswell of Parkside on East Avenue. And the variance requests are to install 2 ornamental trees in lieu of shade trees for solar panels, and to encroach into the front yard setback an additional 5 feet on lots 7 through 30. Also, we will hear a conditional use permit request from Mohammed Khatak for the property located at 1353 Brockett Road, Suite B1 for a laundromat. The Historic Preservation Commission will meet on June the 16th at 10 a.m. and we will be reviewing the current historic preservation boundary. Only a discussion. We will only be reviewing, so your participation is gladly appreciated. And we will go over the historic preservation submittal for verification and nomination of the boundaries. The Starnes Senior Facility is underway with the certificate of occupancy inspection. So we're delighted that they will probably have completion by mid-June. Glendale Rose just closed on another townhome on Friday before the holidays. So we're excited about their additional certificate of occupancy. And the cottages on Vaughn are underway. They're just completing solar panels to be installed in the gazebo area that is to have the pocket park off of Smith Street for the residents, the community park for the cottage homes and for the residents of Smith Street. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Cowie. We will now, are there any questions for Ms. Cowie? Okay, thank you, Ms. Cowie. We will now proceed with the city manager's report. Mr. Gomez.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Robin Gomez, the Clarkston City Manager. Excuse me. We are continuing throughout on Rowland Street mainly, between Market, North Indian Creek, and then between Wagoner and Lovejoy with the SPLOS construction project. The contractor's sole construction continues installing curbing, sidewalks, excuse me, making adjustments to the stormwater lines, some other utility work. And so they're making some good progress that will continue, obviously, for at least throughout the rest of this year. The construction in that area, they'll slowly move segment from segment, and once completed, we'll be hoping to reopen the sections that are currently closed through traffic. Also, our streetscape contractor, Amshiv, is approaching the end of making the corrections, the adjustments to the streetscape project, which includes Norman Road from Milam Park down to Church Street, parts of Rowland Street from Norman to Market, Market from Rowland up to North Indian Creek, and then the East Ponce from Market all the way down to 285. Driving, walking, bicycling those stretches of streets, again, it is nearly 100% complete. The contractor's just making the corrections that we've requested to meet the construction stipulations for a variety of items such as landscaping, such as brickwork, making sure the sidewalks are as they should, even, etc. So they should be finishing that up in the next couple of weeks, and it'll be completely finished. Most of the landscaping has been turned over to the city. Our public works crews are doing quite a bit of the maintenance on the streetscape landscaping. We have, or in the process of contracting with the company that provided the permeable landscaping at the Brockett Triangle and around Refuge Coffee for them to maintain those areas of the permeable landscaping, specifically the plant life, all the bushes, all the items that would need a little bit additional care. And then throughout the year, as we proceed, we will hire a company to do the maintenance, for example, of all the trees that have been installed, the well over 150 trees, and other areas needing a little bit more of the landscape component. So with that coming to a completion, we are hoping in the second week of July, either the second or the third week of July, to have a ribbon cutting, dedication, street light, illumination, fireworks of celebration. More to come on that, but it will likely be on either the second or the third Friday in July. So where we can have that celebration. We'll close Market Street and then have obviously the ribbon cutting and a few other parts to it, but we'll have more details over the next few weeks as we finalize that date. On just a couple of quick reminders, again, as the construction is nearing completion in few parts of the city and then continues on others, please be mindful of the posted signage, whether that be detours, road closure, temporary road closures mainly, and speed limits, as well as stop signs, yield signs, and of course, signalized traffic intersections. There are still quite a few people driving that, for whatever reason, are in such a hurry, they do not want to stop, or they're driving 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. Some of them do get a free trip to Clarkston City Court But we certainly want to avoid that. We want people just to follow the posted rules as they drive through and traverse our city. Also, another reminder for all those that have the residential and small business trash recycling collection, those do occur every Monday. Again, every Monday with the few exceptions on holidays, such as yesterday, Memorial Day, the collections were today. Just a reminder to please make sure that you do put out those containers and any additional bulk or trash items no earlier than Sunday at sunset. Again, to be placed out Sunday, sunset after sunset, and hopefully before Monday morning at 7 a.m. so that the trash, the recycling, and any other items are collected on Monday. For recycling, just as a reminder, in the 18-gallon bin, the recycling items are paper, plastics 1 and 2, aluminum, steel, cans, magazines, newspapers, all types of paper, and cardboard. Again, we do not, at the curbside, we do not recycle glass, any type of glass. And of course, the company will not take any trash. So far, the recycling company, Latham Home Sanitation, has explained to us that our folks that are recycling are doing a very, very good job. Very, very little items are in there that should not be in the recycle bins. Typically, if they are, they will leave those items in the recycle bins. I also spoke with the company to remind them to be gentle with the containers. We'd had some calls from folks saying, hey, I saw them empty and then they just threw the can right on the ground. So again, if any concerns, questions, we do take accolades regarding trash and recycling, please call and let us know. We will notify the company right away. The trash collection, waste management has had some issues, and unfortunately for trash, it's a lot of the private companies, and this is the third city I've worked in, even the second city where we've had a private trash hauler, and they have a considerably high turnover rate, and therefore the collection tends to ebb and flow in terms of collecting everyone at the right time on the right day. So, but please let us know. We are aware that occasionally there are missed collections. We are aware that occasionally folks tend to place their containers after the trucks drove by. Waste Management does have GPS on all of their vehicles. They do provide us the maps and the times when they drove by certain addresses. So they can tell us that, but please let us know if there's anything needing attention. We do our very, very best to make sure that the trash is collected on Mondays, and then our public works staff complements the trash debris collection by collecting any items that do not fit in the 96 gallon container. But if it's any larger items, please call just to let us know that they do need to be collected. So thank you again, everybody, for following those. Just wanted to go over our revenue collections. On the screen right now, you'll see our special purpose local option sales tax, or the additional 1% sales tax. This is just a spreadsheet all the way back to the first month that we began receiving the tax. Again, this tax is what we use for our capital infrastructure improvements that have been held over the last couple of years, including a good part of the streetscapes, the Roland Street and improvements that I mentioned now. And so this past month, you can see our collections for the current fiscal year. This past month, we received just under 174,000, which is pretty close to the prior month. Our collections are considerably above last year. And of course, last year, because due to the pandemic, where closures began at the end of March and throughout April, you can see the decline in just consumer spending subject to sales tax. Therefore, our sales tax proceeds and every other governments, including the state of Georgia, saw a decline. But since May of 2020, you can see there's been a steady improvement, and even a greater improvement through December 2020 and throughout the first 4 months of this fiscal year. We're actually averaging about 26% higher these first 4 months of 2021, again, compared to the first 4 months of 2020. And over the last 12 months, we are about 8.5% on per month average higher. So the trending very positive, again, an indication that at least in the economy, consumer spending continues to do well on taxable goods. Over to our budget, our expenditures versus revenues through the month of May. We are, again, through the first 5 months of the fiscal year, so approximately 42% through the year. You can see our expenditures by department or by area where they are. All of them are right below budget, with the exception of really just our buildings and grounds and public works. But again, some of that due to buildings and grounds, just equipment that we had to acquire, and in public works due to salaries that we will be making the adjustments once we receive the our ARPA funding that will cover at least the hazard pay that has been paid to all employees during the pandemic. On so total for expenditures, we're 35% through the adopted budget. And of course, we will be making adjustments to the budget as we go throughout the year, the rest of the year. Our revenues, again, we receive the majority of our revenue at the end of our year, but you can see where we currently are through at $966,000 or 14% of our revenue. And skipping just quickly over to our revenue, we are about 140,000 above last year at this current time period, $147,063.75. That's what this last column reflects all the way to the right. The second column is what we've collected this current year. And the fourth column or second column from the right, the 819, is what we had collected at this time last year. So we are collecting the only revenues that we are not yet receiving are our rental revenues for the Women's Club, the pavilions at Milam Park, and our pool, which should open this Friday, June the 4th. So we will begin to see some pool admission revenue. Whether we receive close to what we have in prior years remains to be seen. We will begin the pool season with a limited capacity, currently at 50 people in the pool. So, but we will likely be making adjustments as we progress. But overall, we are doing, again, better than we were last year. We have no indication at this point that there would be any change to that. There is an item later in this meeting regarding the millage rate for this current year, and we did receive our preliminary tax digest, which does show a pretty good increase. So again, barring any significant changes, we should be fairly well toward the end of the fiscal year with our revenues and our expenditures. Really no significant changes from the last couple of months through this month. But there's, again, the third column from the left is our current year to date for those items, revenues. And then the second column from right to left, the second column is the same through the same time period last year through May. And you can see quite a bit of our revenue, or some of our revenues are greater than last year. For example, our real property tax for the prior year, our motor vehicle tax, business occupation tax. So as we've returned to closer to being fully open, again, with the exception of the rental locations that I stated, we are faring better than at this time than last year. Our work permit and ID card revenue, last year we were not collecting. We had stopped collecting that due to the virus, but we continue to collect this year, and we're considerably higher over the prior year. Our building permit activity, again, as Ms. Cowie stated, we have more, the continued private construction of various developments, well, mainly housing, continues to take place, and we're also similarly having more, just more commercial building permits for folks doing more work at their residences and even some of the apartment complexes, as well as small businesses. So that continues to go up. Again, no significant changes from the prior month in our expenditures, and our revenues continue to move along well. And lastly, just wanted to, and I think perhaps someone on council will, there is an item later about the World Refugee Day. There will be a World Refugee Day celebration on Sunday, June the 20th, which will take place at Refuge Coffee and on Market Street. And I believe that event is scheduled for 5 to 8 p.m. Appears the day before that, there will also be a Juneteenth celebration, and either the mayor or Councilwoman Hopkins will add some more on that. But that celebration to take place likely at, or will take place at Tahoe Village. We did speak with the owner. They stated we could utilize that parking lot area. And again, that would be on Saturday, June the 19th. And Mayor and Council, that's all I have for this evening. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Council, did you have any questions or comments for our city manager? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Gomez. We will now proceed with the report from our city attorney, Mr. Quinn.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I do not have anything to report for the regular meeting. I do have a couple of litigation updates for our executive session at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed with council remarks and reports. We will start with our Vice Mayor Yasu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May has been a pretty great month. We had a lot of holidays. I want to report first on May 1st. Along with Mayor, I attended an iftar at the Clarkston Mosque. And on May 7th, May 11th, we had a meeting with our community development along with Councilmember Johnson and Mayor Burks. And on May 24th was Eritrean Independence. And I just want to say to all our Eritrean residents or Eritrean American residents, a happy Independence Day. And I also want to congratulate all the graduates of the year 2021. And that's all I want to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Yasu. We will now have Councilman Carroll.
Hey, yes. So on May 19th, I attended the public feedback session for the zoning rewrite and also for the ARC planning. And I thought both the joint meeting was very well done. There was online polling, which we got a lot of good resident feedback in regards to various questions. I appreciate that. On May 20th, I attended the early learning task force meeting and discussed some of the feedback that they had for the better ways that we can get public input in the zoning review, as well as possible ways that we could use ARP funds for childcare and early learning purposes. On May 26th, we had the housing and infrastructure meeting, and that we discussed the different ways that we could possibly use the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in Clarkston, as well as ways that we can change possibly both the zoning and the permitting process to encourage affordable housing within Clarkston. We also discussed an affordable housing summit that may be held in Clarkston in the fall, and Mayor Burks may have some more details on that, but I just look forward to that in the fall sometime. And then we also, also that yesterday was Memorial Day. And I just want to thank everyone who has served our country, and we appreciate your sacrifice and your service. And that's all my remarks.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. We will now have Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I would like to report that, yes, in the month of May, I helped kick off Bike Month I bought my first bike since I got hit by one as a child. So thank you, Madam Mayor. And we did get to collaborate with a lot of the cities around us. So that was wonderful. We also had a bike event with the police, riding with the cops. We had our first community development meeting. And I also attended the Housing and Infrastructure meeting on May 26th. And I would also like to thank everyone that served for our country as in recognition to Memorial Day. And I would like to also say Go Pride today kicks off Pride Month. So we want everybody to know that we're here for everybody. That's it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And you forgot about the food drive.
Oh, and we had an awesome food drive on May the 22nd. And I wanted to thank the city manager, the mayor, and Public Works for making sure that those boxes got delivered to the locations. We managed to give out 200 boxes that day. So yeah, thanks everyone for their participation.
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnson. And now we'll have Councilwoman Hopkins.
Hello, I'm going to be very brief today, but I did want to maybe on a less chipper note, but sort of in the lead up to Juneteenth and why this is so necessary. I just wanted to make note that today is the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, where another municipal government attacked their own residents and basically deputized hundreds of people in advance, armed them, and literally bombed them from the air and shot them as they tried to escape. So 36 blocks were burned to the ground and hundreds of people killed. And some of the survivors of that massacre are still alive. And the government of Tulsa has yet to make any sort of amends or reparations to those families. And none of the people who lost homes or businesses that were fully insured were able to get their insurance companies to pay off. So still keeping my fingers crossed that other municipalities can find in their heart to do what's right by their own people. And I think that illustration sort of says why we do need to recognize things like Juneteenth. And so we are going to be having a commemoration to acknowledge Clarkston's first Juneteenth celebration, which marks the end of legal chattel slavery in America, and at least in practice. And we will be having a meeting on Thursday. Anybody who anybody who would like to attend, please email me at lhopkins@cityofclarkston.com.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hopkins. And now we'll have Councilman Perkins.
Hey everyone, good evening. Also have a very brief report. So I did attend the May 19th ARC meeting. And then for a couple weeks, I connected with some business owners who'd had some trouble getting their licenses and referred them to Robin. So I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Gomez, to you and the rest of the staff, just for following up with our business owners and getting all the licensing sorted out for them. So I know it's been a challenge figuring out just basic processes in the midst of a pandemic like that. So thank you all for your work in doing that. And I also want to say, I appreciate Laura bringing up just the anniversary of this whole just the bombing of Black Wall Street. It's, I think, important that we remember not just the high points of our history as a nation and our communities, but also what we are capable at our worst moments as well, so that we can move forward, I think, into a better future together. And I also want to say, just, since we're coming off of Memorial Day weekend, I actually married into a Gold Star family. And so, Memorial Day is a very different thing for us than it is for a lot of people. So just wanted to encourage everyone to remember just service members, other families who have lost loved ones, in service to our country. Memorial Day is, it's a weekend, but really for these families, it's more than just a weekend. You know, it's Christmas, it's Mother's Day. You know, there's all these little anniversaries in between. So thank you guys for, you know, for remembering that, and just ask that we continue to remember that as we move forward, just as you connect with people. You know, every day's Memorial Day. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Perkins, and thank you all for providing those reports and your comments. And so now we'll move into the mayor's report. And so we'll start off, we were supposed to do a presentation, but I see the person from AARP, Ms. Sabata. And so can Ms. Sabata get online so we can see you? Ms. K. Sabata? There we are. And K. Sabata, if you remember back in December, we voted to be an AARP livable community. And so we have Ms. Sabata for some more information about that.
December seems like 2 years ago, you know, it's like forever. But I thank you so much for inviting me. Happy Memorial Day, happy Bike Month. I'm so excited that you and the other cities were doing that, and Pride Month and everything in between. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am here to congratulate you officially as joining our AARP network of age-friendly communities. The city of Clarkston, Georgia is our 540th age-friendly community, which is amazing. So on behalf of our state director, Deborah Tyler Horton, I'm here to congratulate you. Mayor, I'm virtually giving you the certificate. Do you have it?
I have it.
I need to take a picture. Oh wait, it's disappeared.
Okay, let me take my background off. I have to do no background. So just to make it official.
I love these virtual ceremonies. As you're doing that, there it is. As you're doing that, because I got to make this real and let my colleagues know that indeed the Clarkston folks, my neighbors invited me to their meeting, and the certificate for those who are joining us says that this is to certify that the city of Clarkston, Georgia has committed to becoming more age-friendly under the criteria established by AARP, and has been accepted as a member of the AARP network of age-friendly states and communities. The certification is valid until May 17, 2023. You are not off the hook. I will be with you guys throughout the process, because May 17, 2020 doesn't mean that it's over. It just means that you will be submitting your age-friendly action plan, which is part of your strategic plan right now. You know, so no need to panic that you'll be coming up with something else. Just adding to what you're already working on. Because remember when I did join you in December, I said, we're not trying to create more work, just trying to work smarter and enhance the resources that you already have, and you're doing an awesome job. And this certificate has been signed by Nancy A. Lamond, who is our Chief Advocacy and Engagement Officer, who manages our community, states, and national affairs from AARP in Washington, D.C. That's our national headquarters. The AARP Network of Age-Friendly States and Communities is a program of the AARP Livable Communities Initiative, and it serves as the organizational affiliate of the World Health Organization's global network of age-friendly cities and communities, which Clarkston by itself is like our own little World Health Organization right here. So you all fit in very, very nicely. And congratulations to everybody, Mayor Burks and the City Council and City Manager Robin Gomez and the citizens of Clarkston. Thank you so much. We're so excited to have you on board.
Thank you, Ms. Sabata, and thank you for the opportunity. And I just wanted to make sure that we talk about our partnership and the fact that you already started with Bike Month, making sure that we have reflectors and everything else, and that this was totally free to us, but the benefits really are amazing to the city of Clarkston. So thank you again.
And I think it was City Council Member Johnson, I think it was, who mentioned Pride Month. The LGBT community is also very important to us at AARP. So, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to connect you with my colleague who is our liaison there to see how we can work together.
Thank you, Ms. Sabata.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all what you're doing, and good night.
Good night. And so we will continue with the report. Make sure. Oh, great. So yes, May was a very busy month. So I want to also thank my neighboring cities, Tucker, Stone Mountain, Decatur, Avondale Estates, for participating with our first Bike Month. And it was a wonderful event, and I'm looking forward to doing more collaborations with our neighboring cities. Well, I will follow up next month with a report in terms of all the activities that the cities participated in. So again, I want to say thank you to our police department for hosting Ride with the Cop and the council members and communities that participated. And we also did the kickoff starting May 1st. Where we had all the representatives and the community out to start Bike Month. So again, thank you for that. Again, we had a food drive, and as Councilwoman Johnson mentioned, we gave out more than 200 boxes of food along with 200 cleaning products to residents in Clarkston and in the apartment complexes and in the community. I attended the housing committee meeting as well as the community development meeting. I had the opportunity to attend the ARC meeting on May 19th. I also, along with our city manager, were given the opportunity to be an observer for the Mayor's Institute on Job Creation and Economic Opportunities to Improve the Health and Equity. We were one city that was given the opportunity to be the observer, but the other participating cities were Springfield, Massachusetts, Lexington, Kentucky, Rochester, Minnesota, San Antonio, Texas, San Francisco, California, and Tacoma, Washington. And so we had the honor to be able to listen, get information, ideas, and recommendations on how we can improve our community. And so we were very honored for the National League of Cities to allow us to have this opportunity. We were the only city in the United States where we were given the opportunity to be an observer and to participate and listen. So that was truly an honor. And so thank you for that. I participated in a panel with the Oceana, Georgia and Environment Georgia, talking about single-use plastics. And I also participated in another panel with Alderman Keisha Carter, who in Savannah, they just passed their single-use plastics resolution. So thank you to the council for paving the way. And so we appreciate everything you do in terms of conservation and environmental protection. I attended the resettlement agencies meeting, where we heard from our resettlement agencies and other organizations where we stand in terms of our refugees, our new Americans coming to the United States. On June 5th, my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha, will hold a World Refugee event on from 10 to 11 at Clarkston First Baptist Church. And so it will be a drive-through event. We encourage you to come out. We will have information for our refugee communities, or if you know someone who needs information, please come out. This event is free. And again, it's from 10 to 11. So feel free to tell others about it. It should be on our social media. I also am working with Georgia State and World Workforce DeKalb, and we're going to hold a job fair in July. So I'm very happy about that. We're looking forward to collaborating with some of our other partners, but stay tuned and you will have additional information, because we're doing everything to help our community and to make our community stronger in terms of opportunities. And so this is another way for us to do it. I attended some of the calls for Tucker when they were doing their job fair. And so we're just coordinating with Georgia State, who's done it before with us. So I'm very excited about that. And Juneteenth, we will celebrate Juneteenth, as our city manager stated, at Tahoe Village, and it's going to be from 4 to 8. And it's going to be a wonderful celebration. And we're going to do some activities during that week too, to also commemorate and to educate about Juneteenth. We're going to have that celebration on that Saturday, and we just want to make sure that we educate our community about our community. And so that should conclude my report. I think that was most of the stuff that I did. So that should conclude all the reports for our council and our staff. So we'll move on to public comments. And at this time, any member of the public may address the council during the time allotted for public comments. Each attendee will be allowed 3 minutes for comments at the discretion of the presiding officer. The public comment period will be limited to 40 minutes, and it is not a time for dialogue. If your public comment contains a series of questions, please submit those to the city clerk in writing. This will facilitate follow-up by the council or staff. The city council desires to allow an opportunity for public comment. However, the business of the city must proceed in an orderly, timely manner. Mr. Gomez, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, we have Chris Busing.
Mr. Busing.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Busing.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay. Hello, all my points for this evening, and some of them brought up by Councilman Iasu at the work session. Let us get our physical public meetings back, giving the option to council people and citizens to Zoom in if they like, as long as they believe that the virus will hurt them still. And these purely Zoom sessions cannot last forever. Although these measures originally taken to protect public health, we now could consider this present state of affairs to be a violation of open meetings and Georgia sunshine laws. Someone mentioned electric car chargers as a part of a city facility. I know that electric seems green, but one might want to check on the real cost to the environment of electrically powered cars, in that the electricity comes from coal-fired plants, and 60% of that electricity is lost in transmission from those plants to Clarkston. A more realistic and green idea could be locally generated power, either with PV panels or from an assortment of other low-tech sources such as biomass gasification, the subject of pollinator gardens mentioned. If DOT can do it on I-285, then we can do it in Clarkston. A mile of wildflowers on both sides of the railroad tracks. I don't know how much time I have, but so the council charged the city manager some months ago with providing a study for a well, either for public consumption or irrigation. Concern has been raised by city officials that the water might not be potable. Well, that is what testing is for and can be obtained by the city for free from the Georgia Extension Service after the well has been drilled. Almost all deep drilled wells have potable water and is usually the best water one could ever want to drink. Cost of drilling a well, I estimate to be from $8,000 to $16,000. Robinson Well Drilling told me that for a fee of $2,000, they could assess the existing well on the corner of College and Market to determine if it needs to have sleeves inserted into the existing shaft. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Busey. Anyone else, Mr. Gomez?
We have 40, I don't know who this is, 404 290-1492.
Whoever, would you please state your name?
Dean Moore.
Okay, Mr. Moore.
Yes, I'm encouraged by the outreach and the collaboration with the other cities in the county. And I'd like to encourage the council to, now that we're starting to open up, to look into different programs with ARC and GMA to see what classes are available and require your fellow council members to go to these classes and maybe go together or whatever you can do if you can work it in your schedule. But they have a wealth of information, and so when you have your standing advisory committees, you may have more resources to bring to the meetings, professionals in certain fields, and it'd be a big benefit to the city and a big benefit to the council to expand your horizons in your educational capacity. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Former Councilman Moore. Thank you. Mr. Gomez, was there anyone else who signed up?
Warren Hadlock. Warren Hadlock.
Former Councilman Hadlock, how are you today?
Hello, Mayor Burks. I'm doing very well, thank you. I wanted first of all to mention that I yesterday went by the tiny house development at the end of Lawn Street, and I was very impressed with the solar roofs that they put, solar panels that they've covered the roof with, and the permeable concrete cast pavers that they're using for the drive. And I said permeable because they're leaving a 1/4-inch joint, which if they fill it with the proper gravel, tiny granite gravel, it is considered permeable, like the surfaces out at Stone Mountain and several parking lots. So I was very pleased to see that. I hope this, and I think this development will be successful. It may be the only place in the city where it's really appropriate, but it's looking great. So I want to say that first of all. I also wanted to agree with Mr. Busing on the charging stations. They one idea, and I brought this up briefly the other day with Mayor Pro Tem Ayastu, that we could perhaps use solar panels on the swimming pool roof, or the pool house roof, to maybe power a couple of charging stations at Milam Park. That was just an idea. I don't know if there may be some other place in town where we could do the same kind of thing. I still think it's cleaner and better to have charging stations for electric cars. The coal-fired plants are going to be on their way out anyway under the on the current guidelines. I wanted to say on a more serious note, I sent everybody, including Mr. Gomez and everybody on the council and the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, an email on that has a link to a wildflower seed provider company that, and if you go to that link, it has 10 points on things to consider and implement when you are trying to establish a wildflower garden. They're excellent points, and I think you'll see why I say that we need a professional gardener and garden designer to implement and help us establish that wildflower garden in the old tennis court area over a period of 3 years. Hopefully, since it didn't get done in time last year or this year, that you will keep that money in the budget for that, and perhaps even add a bit more to it, or at least just keep it in the budget to get it established, and then we could refund servicing that that garden in the next year's budget. But I didn't hear back from anybody. I know I was on the council for 8 years. Whenever I got an email from a citizen, I always responded to it. None of you guys, nor Mr. Gomez, has responded to my email. So I don't know if I'm just getting brushed off because people are tired of hearing about wildflowers and Friendship Forest. But hopefully you'll open that and go to that link, and it's right there. Right there on the page as you open it up, the information that I'm talking about. And hopefully you'll keep that in mind. I'll help you as time goes on. I'll continue to remind you that so that we can implement this this project successfully. Thank you.
Thank you, former Councilman Hadlock. Mr. Gomez, were there any other comments?
No one else signed up, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And then we will proceed to item F, which is old business. And at this time, we will go to F1, which is the second reading to amend the city charter to modernize certain provisions to amend Article 4 of the charter regarding budgeting, appropriations, and auditing to repeal conflicting provisions. And again, this is our second read, and we will vote this evening. And if we're not making any changes, because if we do, we got to start all over again. Just a reminder. Okay. So as you see, Mr. Gomez, this was from our Charter Review Committee. And again, thank you to the members of the Charter Review for their outstanding and hard work. It is through this type of work from the residents that we are able to make these changes and the involvement of our community. And so, Council, do you have any questions or comments at this time? Yes,
No
Vice
comments,
Mayor
but a
Yasu.
motion.
Yes, Vice
I
Mayor
just have a
Yasu.
motion.
Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
Well, I move to amend the city charter to modernize certain provisions to amend Article 4 of the charter regarding budgeting, appropriations, and auditing to repeal conflicting provisions.
There's a second.
And for other purposes.
A second.
And properly moved in second that we will amend the charter, the city charter, to modernize certain provisions to amend Article 4 of the charter regarding budgeting, appropriations, and auditing to repeal conflicting provisions. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion has passed. Thank you, Council. We will proceed to the next old business item, which is F2, to adopt a citywide litter control ordinance. Mr. Gomez.
As we discussed last week here, this is to consolidate various sections in the city code into one new section, chapter 23, again, to provide for all the administrative processes to prevent and to ensure the proper control of litter throughout the city.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Council, do we have any questions or comments at this time? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilwoman Hopkins.
I would like to make a motion to refer this to the Environmental Committee because it is essentially an environmental issue. And I think it would do better to have a committee to go over the entire thing and make sure it's completely in compliance with the goals of that committee.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, it has been properly moved and second that we refer this agenda item to the Environmental Committee. Is there any discussion?
This is Councilman Carroll. I don't have any problem with moving it to the environmental committee, but I guess my impression was went through the work session that there were no issues with this version unless I missed something or some issue has come up since then. Is there something that that either y'all are concerned about that causes you to want to study it further? Or is there just for informational purposes?
Councilwoman Hopkins?
I think there's not a specific one issue, nothing's changed since then, but I think the magnitude of something, anything that allows residents to be jailed or fined up to $1,000, I think we need to be meticulous in our planning of it. And I just think the Environmental Committee would be the right committee to review it and just make sure it's completely in alignment.
Councilwoman Hopkins and the rest of the council, this is Robin. That is already in our city code. Again, the purpose,
Okay.
as I've stated several times for this ordinance, is to put it all together. As you can see in the screen in front of you, currently the processes for governing, administrating, and penalizing litter is in multiple sections throughout our code. So the purpose of this was just to bring it all under one chapter. So if you're concerned about that, then we would need to go through, and certainly the Environmental Committee can do that if they like, but it's in one of these sections on the screen on the left column of that chart in front of you.
Mhm.
So if you are concerned about the penalty for somebody littering, then it's, as I've stated, just so everyone is clear, that is currently already in our city code. If you wanted to make a change to that, then we would need to go back through and change that specific code section, which I think is in chapter 12, I believe, but we can certainly check that.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Thank you. Councilman Perkins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Mr. Gomez stated, so my understanding as well is that this is consolidating existing sections. And so I'm wondering if we could consider voting yes and passing this consolidation, but then also pushing it to the Environmental Committee in the future to review and possibly make some suggestions. So this kind of organizes everything, makes it easier to find things, and then we can go through, we can always go through and update things if they're found to be less than ideal. So that would be my recommendation, is we, not table this entire thing, but consolidate it, get it better organized, and then also we can bring this up in a committee meeting as well. I think it would be a better way to go about this.
Thank you for your comments. As it stands right now, we have a motion on the floor. The council can either vote the motion up or down as it relates to referring this to the Environmental Committee. Is there any other discussion by the council? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor of referring item F2, adopt a citywide litter control ordinance to the Environmental Committee, say aye.
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 I have 1, 2, 3. Vice Mayor Yasu.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hopkins.
Aye.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman Carroll.
Name.
And Councilman Perkins.
Nay.
Okay, the motion's passed and this will be referred to the Environment Committee. Thank you all. We will now proceed to item F3, which is to approve parking lot lease agreement with the Clarkston United Methodist Church. Mr. Gomez.
Again, this item, as we discussed last week, is for a lease agreement with the Clarkston United Methodist Church located at 10-9 to lease the parking lot located at 1019 Roland Street. The city has been leasing this lot since 2011. It has gone at least a couple of changes that are not in the current lease. For example, that we are now paying for the disposal of the trash for a 6-yard container located on the lot. This lease would continue that, as well as add a provision that that we would make improvements to the lot, including adding a few additional parking spaces, mill, resurface, restripe the lot. We would relocate the dumpster and put it behind put it on a pad and behind a fence. And the lease would be for a term of up to 30 years. So it would be an automatic renewal every year for up to 30 years. It would stay with the property should the church decide to sell the property, and we would record the lease with the clerk of the court.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Council, do you have any comments or questions or concerns at this time? Yes, Councilwoman Hopkins.
Do we have the agreement of the church yet on this?
The church has agreed to it. They just didn't send over a signed version of it.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
So just follow up a question with what Councilmember Hopkins said. So is it the first step for the council to approve it and then they will approve it, or?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. You were, I think you stated that the council approves it first and then the church approves it?
Yeah, is that the step?
No. No, there really is no progression. I mean, I've sent this to the church multiple times and have not heard back. But in all the conversations that we've had in the last meeting we had, they were in agreement with all of this. I don't know if maybe they're not meeting because they're still not holding their service. But I have not heard back. We can, again, that's why we delayed this for a month. We can delay it further if that's the council's direction until I get a signature back from the church. It is my understanding that over the years, we had items that have been presented and approved by the council before the other party actually submitted a written document.
Any other comments from the council?
I would prefer to wait till we had confirmation from the church.
Well, that would be for the church to sign the agreement, the lease agreement?
Well,
this is not new.
Sent it over several times and haven't gotten anything back, I would think.
No, but the only thing we haven't received is their actual signature on the agreement.
So Councilwoman Hopkins, from my understanding is that Mr. Gomez has talked to them. They
multiple times.
Right, and they haven't disagreed to do this. Simply with us making these approvals, they still have to sign. And so if they don't sign, then
it's not valid. But we can wait to have them sign it. I mean, that was my intent. That's why it was delayed a month. And there's no hurry. Their time is not of the essence on this item just yet. The project, the contractor will not get to this part of the Roland Street work, Roland, Rogers, the trailhead, they won't get to this part of that entire project for at least another 5 months. So there's no hurry. That would have been my preference. I just have not heard back at all. And I've sent multiple emails, made a couple of phone calls, and just haven't heard back from the church about signing the agreement and sending the copy to me. But I have been advised that that's what's been done in Clarkston before. It doesn't mean that's what we need to do going forward, but that's been, I would prefer that they would have signed it, but even in the time I've been here, we've presented many items that have not had the signature of the other party on the agreement. It is I would prefer that there would be signatures from the other party. I've even advised my staff that that's what we need to do going forward. But again, we've had multiple meetings with them and had no indication that they would not be in support of this agreement. But again, if that's the council's desire, we can wait and I can get a signature from whomever, whatever of the trustees at the church and bring it back next month or the month after that.
This is Councilman Carroll. One thing I would say is I do think there's probably no harm to the city signing now, because like I think Mayor Burks and City Manager Gomez said, if we sign, the church doesn't sign, then the whole thing is moot. And also it's possible that us signing may nudge the church to actually complete it. If City Manager Gomez could go to them and said, hey, the council's approved this, it's been signed, you need to sign it. But I also think there's no harm in waiting another month if that's the council's desire, because as City Manager Gomez said, it is a 5-month wait before they get to the construction part of this.
Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I certainly agree with, I think just as Councilmember Carroll said, there's no harm on this. And I feel this is very favorable to the city. I mean, whatever is in the contract, I strongly feel it's favorable to us. So, and I think the city council approving it just fulfills the turn of the city. So I think we can go ahead and approve it, and would hope that the church would approve it as well. And if they don't, I guess it will come back to us, or it's just no. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments at this time or concerns?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Perkins.
Thank you. I just agree with council members Yasu and Carroll. I think it makes sense. We're not approving the signature, we're approving an agreement. I think we hashed this out in its current form to a level I'm satisfied with. And so again, it makes sense. It makes sense to me to go ahead and set it up so the city staff can continue moving forward with it. And if we need to, something changes, we need to discuss it. It'll always come back to us. So I would recommend we go ahead and move forward with this.
Okay, and in that case, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I have a motion.
Councilman Perkins.
A motion that we approve the parking lot lease agreement with the Clarkston United Methodist Church.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor.
Okay, we have seconds and a thirds. So it's been properly moved and second that we approve the parking lot lease agreement with Clarkston United Methodist Church. Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor of to approve the parking lot lease agreement with the Clarkston United Methodist Church, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
Thank you. This motion has passed. Thank you, council. We will now move on to new business, which is G1, to adopt the 2021 advertised millage rate. Millage rate twice. So, Mr. Gomez.
Yes, this item, as I mentioned last week, we did receive a preliminary tax digest from DeKalb County. So this item is for the council to set what we will advertise as our millage or our tax rate for this current fiscal year. And I'll get into the details here shortly. We have had the same millage rate since 2016. It's on the screen right now. The city's millage rates going back each year, back to 2010. As I stated, when the council adopted the current fiscal year 2021 city budget, it was contemplated with a millage rate, the existing millage rate of 15.89 mils. However, the digest that we just received reflects a 14.36% increase over the prior year. So we budgeted at the existing millage rate of 15.89. We had budgeted receiving just under 3.8 million. If the council were to keep that same 15.89 millage rate, then based on the tax digest information that we received with the 14% increase, just over 14% increase, we would receive just over 4 million in revenue. The data that we received from the county with the tax digest also provided the rollback millage rate. The rollback millage rate is the millage rate that, with this year's tax digest information that we just received, that rollback millage rate is the amount of revenue that we would, the same amount of revenue that we would receive as in the prior year. That rollback rate that the county determined is 14.557 mils. It is my recommendation that I encourage the council to set that millage rate, to utilize that rollback millage rate of 14.557, which would be an 8.4% reduction in the city's millage rate. It would still allow us to generate sufficient amount of revenue from the property taxes, as well as other general fund revenues that we would receive the rest of this year. If the council were to choose that rollback millage rate, we would not be required to have 3 public hearings. However, as is listed in the recommendation, we would still have this as part of our regular agenda process for the June 22nd council work session and for the council vote at the June 29th council meeting. On the screen now is the data that we received from the county, and again showing the tax digest. And just to skip ahead, almost at the very bottom, the second to the last line reflects the net adjusted digest. That's the change in the tax digest, or the valuations, from 2020, the 220,526,478 to the current, or this year, of 252,195,787, or the 14.36% increase. So taking into account that increase, that is why we're recommending the council to consider utilizing the rollback millage rate. If we go with that 14.557 millage rate, in essence, our property tax revenue again would be just under 3.7, or excuse me, just for property taxes at 3,351,000. And our total revenue would be, again, not our total revenue, but our total revenue from property taxes that includes both real and personal, and it also incorporates the public utility and the motor vehicle. They're on the kind of in the middle of the screen to your right that are listed. We would have sufficient revenue, again, based on the estimates, to continue with a balanced budget in the current year. This next sheet just shows, again, the change in the digest from 2020 to 2021. And it calculates what the rollback millage rate would be, again, to generate essentially the same amount of revenue generated in the prior year. And again, that would be, but if we stayed with the proposed millage rate of the 15.89, then that would in effect be a 9.16% tax increase. And again, we would have to have 3 public hearings to adopt that millage rate, or any millage rate lower than that up into the rollback millage rate. This last sheet is just, as it states, the consolidated evaluation of our entire tax digest and how the calculation came to just under 253, or just over 252 million for our tax digest. So again, just to sum up, we're comfortable that we would have the sufficient revenue at utilizing the rollback millage rate of the 14.557 mils. The council does have to, at this meeting, determine what millage rate we would then propose to advertise that would be reviewed at the June 22nd work session and then adopted at the June 29th council meeting. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez, and thank you for the information. I am looking forward to hopefully the council agreeing to do the 14.55 millage rate, because that would be something wonderful for us to consider. My only question I have, Mr. Gomez, is based on last year and the adjustments. Are we going to be comfortable in terms of if we use that rate in any adjustments that residents may have with the tax assessors?
Well, we know that we'll have some. We've taken that into account, but that is a little bit of the unknown. Just taking an average of the last 2 years, we are, comfortable with that millage rate. But again, that's a little bit of the unknown. We don't know. We could have probably unlikely, but we could have every property owner appeal their valuation. And then, but highly, highly unlikely.
Okay, so council, I'd like to hear from you. I saw Councilwoman Johnson and then Vice Mayor Yasu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that I recommend that we set the rate at the 14.557.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor Yasu?
I think from the work session, I recall that I absolutely also believe that it's time for reducing the tax rate. However, for purpose of advertising, it's a lot always better to leave some wiggle room for any contingencies. So although I am in favor of reducing the taxes, but we're not really deciding it today. So for advertising purposes, I would certainly recommend that we stay at the current same rate and leave any kind of wiggle room for any eventuality. And we would definitely decide at the July, I think is it July or August City Council meeting to set the actual rate. But at this point, my recommendation is to stay with the 15.89 for advertisement purposes, and we would definitely consider lowering the rate at the council meeting in the future, July or August.
No, the dates to adopt the millage rate is June the 29th. That's the last date, the only date.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Councilman Carroll?
Yes, so I guess I had 2 questions for City Manager Gomez. I do agree with Vice Mayor Yasu that we did discuss just advertise 15.89, and that I think was the general sense of the council the previous work session. So I had a question for the staff. If the recommendation to move it to 14.557, is that just for the final decision, or does the staff also recommend advertising that rate? And then my second question was, I saw that there were some utility fees included. I know that we get like Georgia Power fees and things like that from other developments. If the developments don't have a certificate of occupancy by the time to be included in this tax digest, do we still get utility fees from those through this tax year? Or if in that case, do we not get the utility fees until 2022 if they don't have a certificate of occupancy?
The 14.557 is what we're recommending for advertising purposes. But again, you can, and you're right, what we proposed to be advertised back in December was 15.89. And again, you cannot, whatever you decide tonight to advertise, you cannot increase, but you can certainly decrease. But our recommendation is we're comfortable with a millage rate of 14.557 for the current year. For the franchise fees and other taxes, once they're assigned or once they are on, yes, we start to receive some of those taxes and fees as soon as they get billed. So from Georgia Power, from the gas company, yes, we would start to receive those taxes and fees this year, as opposed to the property taxes that if they were not on this tax digest, we're not going to receive them until next year.
So Mr. Gomez, for example, we have the tiny homes, cottages that should be getting their certificate of occupancy by June. We have the senior facility that should get their certificate in June as well. And we will have many of those townhomes on Glendale and Church that will also receive, probably have their certificates throughout the rest of the year. Is that correct, Mr. Gomez?
Yes, and we would start to receive whatever of those smaller taxes and fees, as Councilman Carroll stated, the electric franchise fee, for example. I will tell you that likely from the cottages at Vaughn, those will be very small. From the apartment complex, the Starn Senior, those, because it's over 100 units, that, and if they're all occupied, then that could be obviously will be more than the cottages at Vaughn. And same for the only residences that are on this tax digest are the few at Glendale Row, those townhomes that did receive their certificate of occupancy prior to this month. But certainly, any others that are added this year, even into next year, we start to receive some of those taxes and fees, as I stated. However, I believe it, and Ms. Cowie may be able to correct me, but I believe the Starnes apartments those are tax exempt for property taxes. Shawana, is that correct?
I'm thinking because it is a senior living facility, but I will follow up and check that to make sure.
Well, I think the ownership is the DeKalb, I think the DeKalb housing. Right. So those, we will not get property taxes on those. I'm fairly certain, but we will find that out. But that's a moot point for this year, for this tax digest, because they, as Ms. Cowie stated earlier, they haven't received their certificate of occupancy, but we will determine that. However, as already has been stated, we would receive the taxes and fees for electric, for gas usage, et cetera.
And then, City Manager Gomez, my understanding is the way the low-income housing tax credit program works is that it is temporarily deeded in the DeKalb Housing Authority's name. And you're right, as long as it's in that name, we won't get property taxes. But I think at some point it gets deeded back to the private developer, possibly after the development's entirely complete and certified. And then I think property taxes are collected. But I could be wrong about that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we'll confirm. We'll review that.
Other comments from the council?
I guess I just want to get the sense of the other council members to see if there was any, discussion about advertising at 15.89 versus 14.557. Because it seems like the sense of the council is that we do want to eventually get to 14.557, but just wanted to see what other members thought about advertising.
Just as a reminder, we talked about that, and we talked about it at the work session to do it at the 15.89. We'll have the 3 meetings or the 3 public hearings to address it. And so I don't think that should be an issue for the council. Vice Mayor Yasu, your comment.
I mean, it's the same, I think, that I was going to say. I mean, we're not setting the rate at this meeting right now. And I think the cost of advertising at 15.89 will be just a couple of extra meetings, one special meeting, and the other one will be the work session, I think, for June. So I think I personally feel we could use a little wiggle room. That I'm really glad to hear that we're gonna lower the tax. Since I've been in the council since 2016, we never raised it, but we have the rate. I mean, the valuation has been going up, and we definitely are at a point to reduce it. And but we certainly could leave for any eventuality, and then we definitely possibly might even lower it less than that. So if there is a consensus, but I would strongly encourage us to set this 15.89, and lower it to 14.557 or lesser than that.
Any other comments from the council? If not, I will oh,
Another
I'm sorry,
question, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Perkins. I'm sorry. Councilman
Well, I was
Perkins.
also on my mute button there. Sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Gomez, I did have a question. I don't know if you could speak. I'm noting that just from this current year and the projected budget with the proposed rollback, we're looking at about $100,000 drop in revenue. I'm assuming there's nothing significant about that, but that does seem, that's a staff member or something like that. Can you comment on,
Right.
kind of how you see that playing out?
Right, that's just to show what the difference in these revenues would be. Again, these are just the revenues that are subject to the millage rate. Again, real property tax, the public utility property tax, personal property and motor vehicle. There are other public utility taxes that are not included in this number that essentially bring this projected budget shortfall down to zero. We receive other public utility taxes, for example, but that are not they're not calculated via the millage. And as Councilman Carroll pointed out, there are other taxes and fees that we receive that will be higher. But once just the public utility taxes alone, even here in this spreadsheet, this shows the actual revenues, for example, for the public utility that are not 95,000. That's based on the digest, but the actual that we received in 2020 was a little over 100,000, but over in the motor vehicle tax, that's another one where not everything falls under the millage. That's the biggest difference, where the millage revenue is only 8,700, but the actual revenue will likely be well over, nearly 100,000 more. We received 148, nearly 149,000 last year. So that between both of those, that in essence wipes this budget shortfall completely into the positive. But again, we were just showing that to show how much revenue we would have at the 14.557 mils versus at the 15.89 mils.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I had a clear understanding of that. So
sure.
Yep.
Any questions from the council? If not, I will entertain a motion. Vice Mayor Yasu. Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
I move that we adopt for fiscal year 2021 proposed advertised millage rate of 15.89.
Is there a second?
A second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve for the year 2021 the millage rate of 15.89. Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor of, for the fiscal year of 2021, that we approve the advertised millage rate of 15.89, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passed. Thank you, everyone. And so we will follow up and we will have 3 public hearings to discuss for the community. Thank you. So now we will move to item G2, which is adopting city animal control ordinance. Mr. Gomez.
As we discussed last week, this is again to adopt a City of Clarkston animal control ordinance. Currently, the city's animal control ordinance references DeKalb County's animal control ordinance. As I stated last week, I think it's just good to have our own. I think every city should have their own, the majority of own ordinances, particularly for animal control. The county one referenced a lot of county functions and processes. Those are not in this iteration of the animal control ordinance. So that's the purpose of this. And as I stated last week, in addition to the purpose of this, the definitions, the responsibilities, the processes, et cetera, we also incorporated the city's participation in the community cats program. In reference to a question last week about the term owner, I did not find any city that does not make reference to owner versus caretaker or et cetera. Yes, I understand our pets are our family, but legally, I think the definition has always included the word owner. Again, I think as I stated last week, I don't recall, we can certainly make that change, but that's the language, the vernacular that's just been commonly used to differentiate between the pet and then the person responsible. I guess you could use interchangeably caretaker, responsible person, owner. So either way works, but what we found is the term owner is the most commonly used term for the person in these types of ordinances to identify the person who is in charge of a pet. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Ms. Vice Mayor Yasu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And it was me who actually brought that issue of using the term. Man, I understand that other cities do not or may not use this, but I think it would be great if we will be the first one to kind of progress. I think the word owner is kind of convoluted. It shows that you actually own something. It makes it a property of somebody. And some people might think that we do own animals, but I just feel like I think that is something that we could put it on quotation marks. I don't know, but I think to continue to use a word that symbolizes ownership versus a family member is just I think it's just I don't see it appropriate to use the word owner. I've used it by mistake before because we are used to saying things, and I really would feel like it would not make it it would not reduce the weight of its legality if we use caretaker instead of owner. And in the definition, we could certainly put caretaker means put it quote unquote owner, but I really would love to see that word owner gone. It's all over the page. Says owner, but it just is. I just feel like it would be great to use sensitive terminology, which is progressive by nature. I know it's probably ahead of its time, but I'm pretty sure there will be time in the future where we will not use the word owner when we're talking about our own pets. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Yasu. Any other comments from the council? Okay, hearing none, and I just as our city manager
Mayor.
talked about the cat program. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm sorry.
Hopkins.
I was trying to jump in. I think I was muted. I would just like to second Vice Mayor Yasu's concern, and I think it would do no harm. We could use the term custodian because if it's more than a caretaker, might just be somebody who is feeding stray cats or something. But I think the custodian is the person who is ultimately responsible for the welfare and well-being of that particular animal. And I think that might be appropriate language that would be satisfactory to all parties. And we can add that to the definitions in the ordinance of who the custodian of the animal actually is. And there's also many cases of divorces of people literally fighting over custody of pets. So I'd just like to put that in, if that would be acceptable to you, Vice Mayor Yasu. Do you think custodian would be?
I would prefer custodian than owner. Thank you for that recommendation.
And thank you both. And Mr. Quinn, from a legal perspective, is there anything that we need to be mindful about?
Well, I mean, legally, a pet is definitely property. I understand, you know, the idea of having a better way to refer to them. I don't think that substituting the word would cause a problem for the ordinance. You know, I think there's a slippery slope we don't want to go to on caretaker, like Ms. Hopkins mentioned, that if you feed a cat one time, then you're not its owner or custodian. So as long as we keep a good definition, and we can use whatever word that we want as long as we define it. And of course, you know, DeKalb County is the animal control agency. And one thought that I've had is we want to make sure that although we're going to have our own ordinance, we don't want to do anything that would throw them off from enforcing it. You know, I don't think changing the word would do that. We would probably just want to let them know. So I don't necessarily have a recommendation about what term to use.
So if we changed it, then we would need to make sure that we had a clear definition of what that meant.
Exactly. And I think we have that for owner now. So if we just went through and substituted, I think that it would work fine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. And Vice Mayor Yasu.
Yes, I just want to refer on page 43 or 42 of the proposed ordinance, where the definitions lie. We could definitely add and substitute the word owner by custodian throughout the page, and include on the definitions custodian instead of owner. And I think from what I hear from the city attorney, it would not make it less of in terms of its legality. So and I definitely would love to see if DeKalb County would consider doing the same thing, and I will reach out to the county commission myself.
Thank you very much. And so with that, we will, and I think Mr. Quinn, if you could mute your phone.
No, there is no going there.
So with this, I also want to acknowledge, and you can have that conversation with Commissioner Terry about this, since he was one of the ones who brought up the cat ordinance. So that would be a great segue for you to be able to do that. So are there any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion. And if you change anything, just make sure it's very clear in terms of what we're going to do, okay? Vice Mayor Yasu.
Can you roll up the page for me? So, thank you. I move to adopt a citywide animal control ordinance and amending the word owner by custodian throughout the page, and added a definition of custodian to be included as caretaker slash, on the definition slash quote unquote owner.
I have a sec. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we adopt the citywide animal control ordinance and amend the word owner to custodian and add a definition of custodian to the definitions page. Is there any other discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor to adopt a citywide animal control ordinance and amend the word owner to custodian and add a definition of custodian to the definition, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is G4, the ARPA funding. Mr. Gomez.
As we've discussed several times, the American Rescue Plan Act signed by the president back in March will allocate funding to all, literally all cities, towns.
Mr. Gomez,
Sorry,
I'm
yeah, you
sorry, I
skipped
made a
over an
mistake.
item.
Yes, I skipped over G3, which is
G3.
approved council standing advisory committee assignment. And that is Councilman Perkins and Councilman Carroll. Councilman Perkins?
Yes, I think it's pretty straightforward. So I'd just like to join the Environment and Transportation Committee as co-chair with Councilman Ayasu, and then also join the Community Development Committee. So I have no further comments on that unless anyone has questions for me again.
Thank you for joining. Keep it short and sweet, and then I'll just entertain a motion. Vice Mayor Yasu? Yes, sir.
I move to approve Councilmember Perkins to join as a co-chair to the Environment and Transportation Committee, and also join the as a committee member to the Community Development Committee.
Is there a second?
I second, Madam Mayor.
Been properly moved and second that Councilman Perkins become the co-chair for the Environmental and Transportation Committee, and he becomes a member of the Community Development Committee, Standing Committee. Is there further any discussion? Are you ready for the question?
I just want to welcome you again.
We are very happy to have you.
And me as well. I would like to welcome you.
Oh, sorry, Councilwoman Johnson. Go ahead.
Okay. I would like to welcome you to the Community Development Committee as well.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to working with y'all.
And the vice chair is still open, by the way.
Okay. I mean, do we want to amend? Just go ahead and check the box.
It's totally up to you guys. Well, it's unless Vice Mayor Ayasu would like to be vice chair. If he doesn't want to be vice chair, you're more than welcome.
I think I'm already a co-chair, but it doesn't really matter.
You can amend, if you'd like to amend the motion to have Councilman Perkins to be the vice chair for the Community Development Standing Committee.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion for that, and then we'll go back and then approve him to be the co-chair for the Environment and Transportation. So Vice Mayor Yasu.
So you want me to do the motion one at a time, one committee at a time?
We have a motion on the floor. We have the opportunity, if you would like to amend the motion, to have him as the vice chair. When you amend it and okay.
All right, I move to approve Councilmember Perkins to join as a co-chair to the Transportation and Environment Committee, and also as the vice chair of the Community Development Committee.
So all you have to do is move to have him to be the vice chair, and then we'll go back to the original motion.
Okay.
Oh, you mean move to amend, right?
Right. Move to amend.
Move to amend for the. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, make that motion, please.
Oh no, I'm not sure if I should recuse myself.
No, he should. Go ahead, Vice Mayor Yasu. So all you're going to do is amend the motion to make him the vice chair for the Community Development.
I move to amend my previous motion to also add Councilmember Perkins to be the vice chair of the Community Development Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
It's been properly moved and second that we amend the motion to have Councilman Perkins to be the vice chair of the Community Development Standing Committee. Is there any other discussion? Are you ready for the question? Okay, all in favor of having Councilman Perkins to serve as the vice chair for the Community Development Committee, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passed. We'll go back to the main motion, which is to have Councilman Perkins to serve as the co-chair of the Environment and Transportation Committee and serve on as vice chair of the Community Development Committee. Is there any discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passed. And so Councilman Perkins, you are the co-chair for the Environmental and Transportation, and you will serve as the vice chairman for the Community Development Committees. And thank you and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you. And now we'll proceed with item G4, which is ARPA funding. Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor. And as I was stating, the American Rescue Plan Act, we are scheduled to, we have not received any change to the funding that we are scheduled to receive, just under 4 million. The media had a few articles recently of other cities. Those were cities that were not the non-qualifying or those were cities that were larger in population and therefore were originally apparently misassigned or considered not entitlement cities, such as Clarkston, for having a population under 50,000. Turns out they actually do have a population greater than 50,000. So that's why their funding allocation changed. And that's, again, the articles that were in the media this past week. But ours, as far as we know, has not changed. We are still scheduled to receive 3,981,473. We have not received that yet, but we should over the next week to 2 weeks. And so the council has to, as we did with the CARES money last year, the council provided some input as to what programs, where, how we would allocate spending those funds, and that's what is before you this evening. There are kind of the main eligible uses of the funds. I went over those last week at the work session, but very similar to the CARES Act, a few additional uses, including investments in water, sewer, stormwater, broadband infrastructure, really kind of the what would apply to us, as well as all the other uses that we used our CARES fund money for. And on the item is a list of what we used our CARES money last year and some specific programs. And I know earlier, Mayor, you sent a spreadsheet showing what the proposed uses of the ARPA funding would be for, and I will bring those up here shortly. If I can find it.
While he's doing that, Council, did you have any other comments? I know if you can probably see it better, that can kind of help. Vice Mayor Yasu and Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I've seen the document, and I definitely agree with all of them. I think all of them are the same as the programs we had last year, and the criteria are the same. We're going to continue doing the same thing. So we already have, you know, the criteria and the people that have received some help. Probably we could reach out to them and make sure that they could benefit from this as well. However, I saw the business assistance. That's the only new part, and I'm not sure about how we're going to see. I would recommend that we put a timeline and make it clear for our city manager, so that it will be clear direction that we would go back to starting from January 2021 expenses, because the last year's assistance went until around close to December, and it would be great to pick up from 2021 and back whatever, including rental assistance, mortgage assistance, utility assistance. And we already are doing payroll, so there's nothing changing on that. I think we don't have anything so far for child care programs or food. That those two might be, especially food, might be a direct need. So I think we could change some of the numbers. Last time, I think the utility assistance program did not get a lot of applicants, and also the mortgage assistance. So we could divert some of that to food. Right now, there might be some need for food assistance. So we could change those numbers, tweak them, and include food, and especially food drives. That definitely might be necessary. But I think childcare will be important, but I don't mind that waiting until next month or so. But we definitely need to include food distribution, or for food distribution, some money. So that will be added to this. And we could take some money from utility assistance or mortgage assistance, but we would definitely supplement it as we go in the future.
And so, Councilman, Vice Mayor Yasu, the rental was a kind of a new one. We did some things for early child care, but overall, we didn't do assistance in terms of the businesses. So for that one, are you still saying to have that effective date to be January 2021?
Yes, for all the programs, actually, I would recommend that, so that would be clear when does it start. So that's the only thing missing, I see, but it goes, we have the limit of the money, but it doesn't clearly state when does the month of need start. So, and I do recall that we did help most people except for the business assistance. All of them, the program went until December of 2020, so we can pick up from January of 2021, and from then, some, especially rental assistance, there are a lot of people who are back rent due, so that would help a lot of people. And also the same way with mortgage assistance and utility assistance. Although we might not have a lot, we could definitely, it would help a lot of people if we backtrack it starting from January of 2021.
Just a point of, I think we will review, but I do not believe we can go back prior to the law's signing. And I don't know, Stephen, have you found anything, but I believe it has to be from March forward.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Robin. I'd have to double check to be certain, but it's definitely not supposed to be, you know, filling in deficits. And I know this is a little bit different because it's a externality, but still, you know, I think from a financial standpoint, that would be filling in a deficit rather than new spending.
So can you make sure to come? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
my concern is it's all COVID related. Everything, COVID did not start in March. COVID started 2019. So I think we're helping people who are impacted by COVID. As long as it's COVID related, I don't think that we would have any trouble helping people who have back rents. And that is because of COVID. And as long as it's because of COVID, I don't see why we can't help people for back rent.
Well, we would, but the back rent would only be back to March. We will confirm that. I'm fairly certain there is some language in the bill, in the law, that stipulated you could not go before then, but we will confirm that. But even if somebody has back rent, by the time we receive the funding, if they're, and the item here lists that we would be able, for rental assistance, for example, cover not to exceed 3 months or $3,000. Well, if it's not to exceed 3 months, that would be March, April, and May at a minimum. So that takes us back to March. But we will review and confirm that.
And any other comments on what we can do if it's the pleasure of the council? We can reduce the amount for utilities, because if I remember correctly, Mr. Gomez, we did not exceed 50,000.
It's in the agenda item.
I do recall it. I think it was about $29,000.
Okay. So what we can do, if it's the pleasure of the council,
29,000 for utility assistance.
okay. What we can do for the council, if the council so pleases, we can, instead of having the amount, and you can bring that page up again, Mr. Gomez. The other sheet. Because I saw it was like, yes. So if it pleases the council, what we can do is, just to be on the safe side, make the utility amount to 50,000 and then do the food distribution for another 50,000. Okay. Any other comments from the council?
I have a couple of comments, Madam Mayor.
Yes. Councilman Perkins.
Yeah, so on just reviewing this, I don't know if we would feel comfortable actually giving a little more freedom and discretion to our city staff, and just really defining the intent behind this. As when we were operating underneath some of the other grants last year with rent assistance, one of the challenges we ran into is we had a lot of some fairly dynamic situations as things continue to progress, and a lot of times the stipulations and some of the funding sources that were available, grants that we got, we had people falling through the cracks. And so personally, I'd love to see us set up, I think we've sort of covered this with the business assistance, but repeat the same language for rent and mortgage assistance, and leave some of the qualification criteria, instead of saying, hey, we're just going to adopt last year's criteria. The situation is, the cause is the same, but the situation has continued to evolve. And so I think I would encourage us to maybe create a little more freedom there and flexibility for our city manager to be able to continue to adapt this moving forward without having to bring it back to council, just to create some agility there. That'll allow us to, I'm comfortable with that being divvying it up. One example of something we had to do is we had to create a separate fund for victims of domestic violence, that was a result of the pandemic. And, they couldn't qualify because their abuser was the one with all the documentation that they needed to qualify for rent assistance. And so Robin, if you're comfortable with it, I'm comfortable giving you that kind of, flexibility to make some calls or, kind of divvy this up in different ways as our understanding of the immediate need progresses. Last thing I'll say is, again, I just want to clarify our intent with this. We want to make sure that we are moving people back towards normal. And so this sort of first, round of funding with ARPA, I really want us to make sure we are, at some point it's going to end, right? We don't have another $4 million guaranteed. we want to make sure that we're setting people up for success. This is kind of, again, hey, is anybody still, need us to help stop the bleeding, and sort of stabilize them so we can move them forward. And so I think any criteria that we put on that, I would want to make sure that we're thinking towards stabilizing and long-term sustainability with it. So let's just see a couple of, principles.
I'm sorry, Councilman, I'm a little confused. Are you saying that we perhaps allow for more than what's listed on here, for more than rental assistance, for example, for more than $3,000 or 3 months, or?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I can clarify. No, I'm saying that the qualification criteria. And so, for example, documentation that's required right now, we're saying we want to adopt the same requirements documentation used for the last distribution. My assumption is, there's obviously going to be some grant compliance that we're going to need to, take into account in terms of what the federal government might ask us for. But I'm just saying, instead of saying, let's adopt the previous requirements, just a simple change to say we want, applicants to meet the requirements as defined by you and the city staff. Just to give you that flexibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that does require then I would really need some, we made it very, very easy last time. And so that everybody is aware, we had a 2-page document, essentially the application that everyone had to fill out, had your demographic information, and a little bit about your rent, and then a little bit about, just very briefly, your situation. Then we required that they had to provide proof that they either had lost their job or had their work hours reduced. So they had to provide some sort of proof of income loss. And then we had to prove identity. They had to provide a picture, form of identification that came in a variety of ways, from licenses, driver's licenses, which were the most common, but we also received copies of passports, permanent resident alien cards, work visas. We even had one gentleman that provided his server permit card that he received from the city of Clarkston, because we permit servers and entertainers. And then the last was that they had to provide a copy of their lease, where they were living. So I don't know what we would change from that. I'd be happy to, whatever we need to change, we could certainly do that. But I thought that was fairly about as minimal as we could to show that somebody really was in need. We really weren't even, it was not a requirement that you show proof that you were behind on your rent, even though we did receive those, but it was not, we did not require that.
Sure. Yeah. And all I'm saying with it is to give you the flexibility instead of saying you have to use that. For example, this again, we'll use the domestic, violence, situation. One of the things we did, and this isn't a criticism of the program. This is more related to some other, other funding and challenges. I want to be clear on that. I think you guys did a great job with that. But for example, one of the things we did, we allocated a bit of our funding, the organization that I work for, where we made it as simple as the word of a caseworker, right? Like we had a couple of trusted partners and we said, you know what, as long as you'll provide an impact statement, for a, particular individual in a program, we would go that route, just that they couldn't provide any kind of documentation. So I'm not giving you like specifics, anything needs to change. I just want to give you the flexibility to make those changes without having to be back to bring it back to council. Just since the current language that we're looking to approve is to use the requirements from last year. Does that make sense?
Well, Mr. Gomez, do you need that flexibility, or are you okay with what you have? And then
I'm very comfortable with the process we used, but I guess, yeah, we'll see what we receive and make that determination, be as flexible as we can.
And also to that point is that we have partnering organizations that are also receiving funding. So we may be able to coordinate and work with those organizations if they don't meet the requirements. Because we want to make sure in terms of the documentation that we have, we will go through an audit process, and we want to make sure that anything related to an audit, that it is as smooth as possible. So it is very important for us to make sure that we have a documented process and leverage our partnerships with other organizations that can help us, particularly with those types of situations. Vice Mayor Yasu.
I just want to assure Councilmember Perkins that there were people who actually talked to me, and they could not prove that their income, and the city manager was pretty flexible, and he even took a screenshot of their Uber income. He wasn't asking them for W-2s or any more details, and but he can't be too extreme relaxed that they just give him a name and they cannot expect a check. But I honestly don't see. But I definitely, if there are extreme cases, 1 or 2 people, I definitely welcome those people to reach out to you or to me or to the mayor, and we definitely will work with the city manager and help them. But I think whatever we had was working, and I think the city manager was doing his best as he can, and he did have the flexibility that he needed, and I'm okay with giving him extra flexibility, but I just want to let you know that we did, at that time, it was the first time, and we really had to adapt quick, and it was and the city manager was pretty quick to bring the forms and the requirements and the criteria. So I don't see much challenge since we already done this. It can be done again. So I definitely agree. There might be some extreme cases, but it's not going to be a norm. So I definitely would welcome if we can give him extra flexibility. But I see that he did pretty well the last time, and I don't see any issues with what we had before.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Yasu and Councilman Perkins.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that I'm not criticizing the previous program. I was actually, part of sort of pushing for that in my civilian capacity too. And I think it was well administered. And I probably overcomplicated it. My only concern is just making sure that there aren't limitations, saying, hey, it has to be the last program. So Robin, if you feel like you have Mr. Gomez, if you feel like you have the flexibility you need in order to do that, you're not limited by, the program that was set up then in any way, then I'm comfortable with that. So
Yeah, I think we'll be flexible.
All right,
as much as we
good.
can.
Perfect. All right. Any other comments from the council? Okay. Hearing none, what I heard, Vice Mayor Yasu, but before you say that, I just want to make for clarification purposes that if these numbers are fine, what I heard from the discussion is that we would reduce the utility assistance to 50,000 and include food distribution for another 50,000. Vice Mayor Yasu.
Thank you. I mean, I just want to say that I think with are we voting on this right now? As just a procedural question because we don't have the money yet. Is this just a guide for the city manager, or are we going to vote on anything right now?
And City Manager Gomez, we should be receiving the funds in mid-June, correct?
Within the next 2 weeks from everything that we've been provided, yes.
Right. So we'll receive the funds in the next 2 weeks. And so this will allow him to proceed once we receive the funding.
But there's nothing to vote on now. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure why we're voting on this at this point. I mean, we could definitely direct him and let him know that this looks good to me. I'm not against it. I'm just not sure what are we voting for at this point. So we don't have the funds yet.
And Mr. Quinn, just to correct me if I'm wrong, it's okay for us to vote for the funding that we're going to receive because the funding amount is not changing for us. And so we won't spend the money until we get the money.
Right. I mean, I don't see a problem with directing or rather allocating these funds. Obviously, if they don't come in for any reason, then they won't be spent. And that would be certainly disappointing, but it wouldn't be a problem that we had voted.
And this is Councilman Carroll. The one thing I would say is that voting now, I think, would let this manager probably hit the ground running in terms of preparing the forms, if any new ones are needed or updates, and preparing when we do get the funds to go ahead and take the action, as opposed to if we wait till the next meeting. I don't know if that would cause any delay in getting the program started. If assuming the funds come in sometime between now and when the next council meeting is.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Any other comments from the council? Okay. Vice Mayor Yasu.
One last comment. We definitely could do, this is not a criticism of our city staff, but we definitely need to do a pretty good job at letting people know, especially with mortgage assistance. We only had about 4 people who applied. I mean, those are 4 families that definitely stayed in their homes, but we definitely would do a lot better if we could send out letters to our residents or do better advertising. I'm not sure what kind of advertising we could do more than social media, but I think direct mails would be helpful to our residents.
Thank you for that recommendation. And so the staff and the city manager can take that in terms of making sure that our community knows what is available to them. So thank you. So at this time, I will entertain a motion from the council. Vice Mayor Yasu.
I move that we approve the proposed allocation of ARPA funding for Clarkston with addition of with reducing the utility assistance to $50,000 and adding a new subset of food distribution in the amount of $50,000.
There's second. Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we approve the proposed allocation of the ARPA funding for Clarkston with the reduction of the utility assistance to $50,000 and adding a new category for food distribution in the amount of $50,000. And so the total amount will be $1 million, and the additional allocation, just to make sure for all documentation purposes, the additional funding of the $900,000 and $900,000 would be voted upon by the council at a later date. Is there any other discussion at this time? Are you ready for the question? All in favor to approve the proposed allocation of the ARPA funding for Clarkston with the addition of reducing the utility assistance to $50,000 and to add a new category for food distribution of the amount of $50,000, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passed, and thank you very much. And I know the citizens of Clarkston will appreciate that. And we just want to make sure that they know that the city is here for them. We will move on to the next item, which is to adopt Juneteenth proclamation. And so we're very happy to celebrate the Juneteenth celebration on Saturday, on Juneteenth, June 19th, up at Tahoe Village and from 4 to 8. And we also are happy the fact that this year will be the first year that we have the 18th as an employee day for Juneteenth. So I want to thank Councilwoman Hopkins. We want to thank all of the council members for making this happen. If you want to volunteer or want to participate, please make sure you reach out to Councilwoman Johnson, because we are all working together, and you attend the meeting on Thursday and contact Councilwoman Hopkins for that. And so again, this is just a reminder that while President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, it did not reach Texas until June 19th, 1865. And so this is a reminder of the passage and what inequities that many African Americans faced then and still face today, as we even celebrate the 100th anniversary of what happened in Tulsa on Greenwood. And so as a council, as a body, we want to make sure that we recognize that, and that we recognize the inequities that many of our community has faced, but also celebrate the accomplishments we are continuing to do. So I thank the council for this. And are there any other comments from the council at this time? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
May I?
Oh, yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Hopkins.
I move to adopt the Juneteenth Day proclamation.
Your second. It's been properly moved and second that we adopt the Juneteenth Day proclamation. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passed. Thank you. We'll proceed to the next one, which is to adopt World Refugee Day, the proclamation. And so again, I made a minor change, Vice Mayor Yasu, about the welcoming city component to it. And I sent it to Trace, our city clerk, about that. So we changed it to Clarkston as being known as a welcoming city, and removed since 2014. So that piece was removed.
It is still showing in the packet.
Yeah, I think Trace, Miss Ashby, she has the updated one.
Okay.
Mr. Gomez, do you have that one?
Let me check. Excuse me.
So it would be the same for that, as well as the LGBTQ month. But basically, as he's looking for it, to recognize World Refugee Day and to welcome our new Americans to our city, and also recognize for the fact that in Clarkston, we have been welcoming for more than 30 years. As you know, we are a city with more than people from 50 different countries in our 1.5 square mile radius. And we continue to support the accomplishments of our newer Americans, as many of them grow to be business owners in our communities and make major contributions. And so we thank them. So as you can see under that section where it says Clarkston is known as a welcoming city and remains committed to building a neighborly community where all individuals, regardless of race, color, creed, place of origin, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, disability, political affiliation, marital, parental status, or military service are welcome and accepted and integrated. And so we just want to say thank you to and acknowledge our new people. Are there any other comments at this time? Vice Mayor Yasu. Mayor Yasu, if you could.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was having technical difficulties, but yeah, thank you for changing that that sentence that put 2014 to be the year that Clarkston became a welcoming city. I do agree that we have been doing more and more proclamations, but the city has certainly been welcoming, and we appreciate, I myself as a new American, I appreciate this recognition of Refugee Days, and I'm glad it also coincides with the with Juneteenth. I think we definitely would have not been at this point if it wasn't for the struggle of African Americans and the Civil War struggle, and for all the struggles throughout the last hundreds of years that African Americans went through. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion at this time. Vice Mayor Yasu?
Well, I'm gonna keep doing this, I guess, today. I move that we approve the proclamation by Clarkston Mayor and City Council recognize June 20, 2021 as World Refugee Day.
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved in second. Is there any discussion? Okay, are you ready for the question? All in favor of approving the proclamation by the Clarkston Mayor and City Council recognizing June 20th as World Refugee Day, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passed. And so again, we're going to have two events recognizing World Refugee Day, one on June 5th at Clarkston First Baptist from 10 to 11, and also on World Refugee Day on June 20th at Refugee Coffee. So make sure you look to the city social media for more information. And then the next one is to adopt the LGBTQ month proclamation. And again, we made that change as well in that one. So again, we want to make sure that Clarkston is a welcoming community and we welcome all. And since June is LGBTQ month, we want to make sure that our community knows that we love and support them. And so with that, are there any other comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll do it.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt June 2021 as LGBTG plus Pride Month.
LGBTQ plus Pride
I have
Month.
an extra
Yes.
G.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been
second.
properly moved and seconded that we recognize June 2021 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Are you ready for the discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passed. Thank you again. And so the last agenda item is a G8, which is to adopt the resolution confirming the CAB conduct the 2021 elections. And Mr. Gomez, would you touch on this item for us, please?
The item before you is to adopt a resolution essentially authorizing DeKalb County to conduct our upcoming 2021 municipal general election. The city voted back on July 1, 2003 that DeKalb County would be conducting all city municipal elections in accordance with Georgia Municipal Elections Code. Then in 2013, the city entered into an intergovernmental agreement with the county to define essentially the county's responsibility, the county and the city's responsibility to conduct city elections. The resolution before you simply confirms what the city did back in 2013, that we are authorizing and allowing the county to hold our city elections. The general election scheduled for Tuesday, November the 2nd, as well as any other necessary elections going forward. So this simply reiterates what, or formalizes what we've been doing.
Madam Mayor?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. Are there any comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I have a motion.
Yes, Councilman Perkins.
I move that we appoint the DeKalb County Board of Registrations and Elections to conduct the City of Clarkston 2021 general municipal election.
And I second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we adopt the resolution confirming DeKalb County will conduct the 2021 elections. Is there a second? I mean, is there any discussion? Yes, Vice Mayor Yasu.
I just want to say, I hope someday soon we will run our own election and probably have a paper ballot.
All right, thank you for the comments. Any other comments from the council? Okay, are you ready for the question? All in favor of approving and confirming that DeKalb County will conduct the 2021 election, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passed. And then at this time, we have item H, which is the executive session. And so at this time, I will entertain a motion for this. And so for the sake of the community, we will adjourn, we will recess this meeting, go into executive session, and then all we will do is just adjourn it. So once we do this, unless you just have nothing else to do but sit around and wait for us to say adjourn, we just want to make sure you know that. So we'll take a motion at this time. Vice Mayor Yasu. And you're on mute.
I move that we go into executive session
I second.
Or you have to say why.
to discuss a legal matter.
And it's been seconded. It's been properly moved and second that we recess the council meeting and go into executive session for a legal matter. Is there any other discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor of recessing the meeting and going into executive session to discuss a legal matter, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Okay, we will now recess the meeting and then the council, I will entertain a motion. Council, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to
Madam-
adjourn. I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor to adjourn the meeting, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Thank you, everyone, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank
I
you.
have a
Good night.
request.